It's good to go.
We're on?
We're on.
Awesome.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, it is good to be back. We've talked about doing this again for a while, and we've just been busy over the summer, so we haven't made it happen.
Yeah. Life ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
So,
But we've both been busy doing exciting things, so it's all good.
yeah, it's been good. Which, when we went to lunch the other day and we just got talking about the stuff we've been doing and people chatting with us, and just because, they see us doing different things than maybe society tells us to do, just got us kind of thinking we need to get back together and tell the world.
Yeah. I kind of had, just as I was thinking about, us doing this, what are we going to talk about? I mean, we've talked about, since that conversation the other day, how there's like a flood of people kind of trying to find what it is that would help them have the ultimate lifestyle, I feel like, kind of. I mean, it's kind of ripped the cover off of a lot of things that people maybe disagree with in their current situation or whatever, and so they're looking to improve their lives, which I think is awesome. But as I was thinking about that with us, kind of shifting gears on podcasts and shifting focus and stuff, I kind of thought about, before we were talking about government, Federal Reserve, money, all those kind of things, and kind of almost focusing more on the problem. And I feel like with this, even since we've talked over the last couple weeks, like this is the solution.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of cool to me. I'm it's kind of motivating and kind of exciting to me. Like, hey, this is, yes, there's a lot of problems, but this can be the solution where people can help themselves and help each other to better their lives. So.
Yeah. Well, and even, that other stuff, Federal Reserve, government, money, currency, all of that. It's easy to get into the weeds and speculate a lot of things. I mean, we're probably right on most of it, but, speculate a lot of things. But this, we've lived it. We are living it. We've been able to help people live it. And it's there. It's quantitative. We know. Not just what it can do for someone's financial future, but just their happiness and fulfillment right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, something that you said that kind of sparked off this whole thing the other day, I really liked it. You referred to, here we're at a point where, over the last couple of years, tons of people have been leaving their jobs for one reason or another. There's a lot of reasons behind that, but searching for something better. And so the other day in our conversation, you kind of referred to it that there was going to be a entrepreneurial revolution. And I think that kind of is what sparked this whole thing off. Like, hey, let's talk about entrepreneurship. Let's talk about self-reliance and how people can get to that point in their lives. So I think that it's awesome to think about that we could be on, like, there are people looking for that, and I think it is kind of a revolution that's going on. And I thought that was a good way to look at it when you brought that up the other day.
It is interesting to see. I mean, obviously growing up, and we've had this conversation a lot just when we work together, go to lunch or podcasts or whatever. Society is go to school, get a degree, then go to more school, get a degree, get a job, work, and there's nothing wrong with that, if that's what you choose to do. The problem is that a lot of people don't want to do that, but they feel that that's the only way. Now, even listening to other podcasts, there's people out there with doctorates and double doctorates, and they're like, look, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have gone. And it's not that any of that is bad, it's just you can do most of the things that you want to do without a degree. You have to get education, but that doesn't mean you have to go out and specifically get a certain degree. And that might be scary to some people, but it can also open up the doorway to anything you want to do. Like, really anything.
Yeah. I was watching, I don't know, it was on Facebook or something, but have you seen, I think his name's Daniel Mack, like goes up to people that are driving like Lambos and stuff and asks them what they do for a living.
No.
Have you ever seen his clips? Like I guess it's like huge on TikTok and Instagram or whatever. I don't, but just clips of it have popped up from time to time in my, in my social media stuff. Most of those, like he'll ask them like, hey, what do you do for a living, whatever, and I mean, like they're in cars that are a few $100,000, whatever, and then he'll ask them sometimes, did you go to college? Yeah. And like a majority of them say either no or I dropped out of college, which is interesting. Like, not that, I mean, just on the surface, you don't know that person's situation if they inherited that money or whatever, Yeah. But to have that many people, say that, I mean, it's just interesting to think about. Like, most of the people I know that are super successful very little college or none at all.
Yeah.
But yet our society almost shames people if they don't go to college,
Yeah, and I can see where that comes from. I mean, they wanted to have a metric. They're like, hey, if you get an associate's degree, then you've shown that you can do 2 years of dedication to make that happen. Oh, now if you get a bachelor's degree, master's, doctorate, I mean, there's definitely, I want my doctor to have a doctorate. Like, that's
sure.
great. But if I could choose an ideal college to go to, it would be one that is teaching creativity. It's teaching that you can follow and reach your dreams. You can create a company. And it all comes down to value creation. So it's good to learn specific things, how to do 2 + 2 = 4. But at the same time, how do you create value for others? And that's really, I think, what this all comes down to. You've got all this craziness that's happening in the world. A lot of people are not satisfied and happy in their job. We do have an inflationary state that's going to make things harder and harder. Just housing, food, gas, everything that just kind of the essentials. It's going to cost more. But wages aren't going to go up that much. So we're in a conundrum. The only way to get out of that is to add value to others and transfer that value monetarily.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think that is probably the biggest factor in people leaving their jobs. Yeah. I think they're looking at, okay, my cost of living increase or whatever was 2% this year or whatever it is. Well, we just had an inflation number that came out for October that was like, what, 8.6%?
Crazy, yeah.
And so I think people are looking for other ways. And the cool thing about value creation, like you're saying, is those products, those services, those things increase with the rate of inflation. So if people are looking for a anti-inflation hedge, that's really the only way, is to start a business where you are selling things that keep up with the rate of inflation or exceed it, right?
Yeah.
But I think that just what you said there is probably the number one reason why people are. And I think it's interesting because in the media, and I've had this conversation with quite a few people actually, in the media, we're told that people are leaving jobs because they're just sitting at home getting government benefits. And I don't doubt that there is some of that out there. Probably is. I actually do not know anybody personally that's doing that.
I don't either.
But I have had tons of people come to me and say, hey, how do I start a business? People that have never, like even with our conversation the other day, that individual was like, 2 years ago, I thought I had security in my job. Yeah. Was one of his comments. And he's like, I don't feel secure anymore because my wage isn't getting me what it used to be, and I don't feel fulfilled in all these things. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way, that they're not as secure as they once thought that they were, you know.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is when you used to say security, it was that I would never get fired from my job. Well, he'll probably never get fired from his job. He's really good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But you start to look at the way things are going, and it might be a necessity that he breaks off. And that's kind of the scary part of it. You know, people might not be fulfilled, and then it's the money that breaks it. You know, we're lucky to be in a business where our employees and our coaches, they're very passionate about what they do. So we actually really try to pay as much as we possibly can to them, but it's not an insane wage. I mean, they can go somewhere else and make more money. They're just really passionate about what they do, helping people. So we're in a good industry. But you do something like, you know, police, they're in a tough spot right now. Firefighters, paramedics, really any like public service job is in a weird place right now.
Yeah.
And so,
or medical, like any medical, you know, anything to do with that.
And I mean, not to, you know, go down rabbit holes or whatever, but, you know, you got all these mandates that are coming out, and people that they're just scared. There was a guy that I know, he showed me an email from a friend who has a job. I'm trying to be kind of cryptic about it. He has a job, and they said, "What's your plan with the vaccine?" And he showed me the email, and it was, "Look, I have some reservations, and here's the list of reservations." And essentially it's, you know what, you have a reservation, I'm sorry, you're gone. Well, this guy who had an extremely secure job and making good money, he just doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
Now, he actually had a fulfilling job. Now you take the millions of people that aren't in a fulfilling job, we can fill that void. They can fill their own void, and that's something that we're not taught in schools, whether it's public school. I would imagine private schools teach it a little bit more. Universities don't teach it as much until you start to get the Harvard, Yale, those kind of places. Make your own job.
Yeah.
Make something that makes you happy and fulfilled, and you can set your hours. And there's people that they work 80 hours a week because they love it. And then there's others that work 20 hours a week, but they're able to add so much value that their life is, they're just living it how they want to. And people, anyone watching, anyone listening, no matter what, you can make any life that you want. It's totally up to you. And that comes down to victim mentality versus prosperity mentality. And I mean, we could go deep. We can go as far as we want.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, even right there, though, people hear that, you know, oh, I can create any life that I want. And society still tries to extinguish that, you know, like, no, you have to work X amount of hours a week in order to be contributing to society or whatever, you know, or even trying to vilify people that are making a lot of money or whatever, you know. It's just so interesting. And even in universities, like, so I have a 4-year degree. I have a bachelor's degree, business oriented, and nothing against going to college or business or anything. Yeah. But very little of what I learned in business or in college applied to what I was doing in businesses, you know, or whatever. You know, it all came. I was lucky to grow up with, you know, in a family business that, I mean, I went to meetings and business stuff, and just my dad took me around everywhere. Yeah. You know, and so I think back to that, like, invaluable. You know, how to talk to people, how to, you know, just negotiate, or how to, you know, just all this the stuff really, compared to what I learned at college. That life experience is huge. Now, that being said, some people might not have that kind of an opportunity, you know, and so there's, you know, and maybe we'll get into this down the road, but tools and things like that people, if they haven't had, you know, a business background or upbringing or opportunities like that in their life, there's still so many resources, and we can, you know, later on go into that kind of stuff. But I just think that the traditional places that people look are breaking down. Yeah. Like, they're becoming irrelevant. I listened to a podcast Well, it was just an interview. It wasn't really a podcast, and this was just within the last couple months, but it was about two teachers. They were teachers in Colorado. Didn't love what they were. I mean, I don't know, maybe they did, but just wanted a change. And they saw a ad come. They're both avid fly fishermen, and that's kind of how I came across this. It was in a magazine or something, fly fishing magazine. They came across this ad or something that a well-known custom fly rod builder was selling his business, and just had put a blanket, kind of ad out there saying we're taking applications for whoever's going to buy this business.
Yeah.
And so they no experience. No, they're like, hey, why not? Let's try it. Whatever. Teachers have secure jobs, have families, whatever. They end up, going up to Montana, interviewing with this guy, and they get the opportunity to buy this business. And they're getting interviewed, and the guy's like, that's incredible. You went from that to this. How did you know how to do it? And how did you know what to do? And they're like, we had no clue. And they even had gone to school for business, I think, some of them, and studied business. And both of them were like, we've done everything completely opposite of what we learned in business school. Yeah. Which was kind of interesting to hear. And I mean, in my own experience, I feel that same way. Yeah. A lot of times it's not it's not what we're taught, and so it's interesting to think about college and things in that way. Are we really giving people the tools they need, I guess? I don't know. Sure. That was a long story.
No, it's great, though, to see, a lot of things that we've learned just because you have knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go put it into success. We measure success, for the most part, at least Western civilization, as monetary gain. And we all want to have security, and we want to have longevity, we want to have prosperity. But just because we have the knowledge doesn't mean that we're going to go and create a life of prosperity. People will come and they'll you've probably experienced this. People will say, hey, how do I start this? I'm like, I actually don't know how to start it. But that's not the right question. The question is, what's the life that you want to create? So we could go into all the details of, well, you need to start an LLC, and you need to decide whether it's going to be that or an S corp or this and that and that. Mm-hmm. That stuff's just going to happen. You're going to make that happen. Do it legally, morally, and ethically. It's all going to happen. But why do you want that? Why do you want the business that you want? Now let's start thinking about people. What do people want? How can I give them that value? If people are going to give me $120 a month for a gym membership, what am I creating? I want to make sure they're getting $200 of value out of it. That's tough to put a dollar value. But that's what it all comes down to. Yeah, it's it gets me excited, then I don't really know what to say. Because really, if someone's listening and they're going, okay, what's the steps? What are the steps? There are so many resources out there on what steps to start a business. None of it matters. None of those steps matter because they're going to happen. What matters is how can you add value to others, and really, it'll just come back to you. Generous people happen to, in my experience, there's no scientific study here, generous people happen to make more money. The people that are the big tippers, the people that are out there secretly hey, don't tell this guy, but, pay for his gym membership, do this, do that. They're the most prosperous people that I know. Yeah. Kind of goes against
they're giving away so much. How do they have so much?
Exactly. Almost like if we do the opposite of what we learned, things work out.
So along those lines, talking about the steps and everything, have you, because you've started multiple businesses, when you've looked at those businesses, did you have number one, all the answers, and number two, when you started, and number two, did you know what you were doing?
Yeah, so I still don't have the answers, and I still don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I mean, that's really the truth. And every day a new problem is going to present, and it's just what it is. And we solve it. And then the next time we know how to avoid it. And really, my personality is, if I did know the answers, I'm not in it deep enough.
Yeah.
That's how I am. Now, there's probably a part of me that longs for that. Like, hey, it'd be really nice to just not have to solve 15 problems today. But man, then we're not growing. What's the point?
Mm-hmm.
That would probably make me want to quit my job and come ask someone how to start a business. Because
Yeah.
that's like the fun part about business. And you don't have someone telling you what to do, except for customers, which is awesome, because then you can shift your business model to them. It's tough. Like, it's way harder than when I worked full time for somebody. But I didn't get near the fulfillment out of that as I do this, because every day you're just searching, what does the world need?
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, maybe from a okay, I'm stumbling a lot, but it's really tough for me to find like a place of self-confidence where I'm like, wait, how can I, this pretty young kid from a small town that dropped out of college and I went back and got an associate's degree in something that I didn't care about and this and that, like, how do I have anything that can provide value to the world? But then I'm like, there's a lot of people that don't do what I do. So it's like a place of not confident, and then maybe a place of ego that's like, no, actually I have an answer for a lot of people. And really it comes down to what they can do that I can't do. You know, I pay people all the time to do stuff, whether that's get groceries at the grocery store, or gas, or if we go on a trip and pay a guide or whatever that is. They all have value that I don't know how to provide to someone else, so I'm going to go pay for it. Well, then what can I provide that they need to pay for it or want to pay for it? Everyone out there has something.
Yeah. You know, I've had on the latest project that I'm involved with, it's been interesting to see. I mean, I think we all, we have to be motivated by something, right? And that goes for everybody, whether in jobs or anything like that. And there's one of my favorite books is called How to Control Your Own Mind, I think. It's by Napoleon Hill and like has Andrew Carnegie and stuff, kind of like the Think and Grow Rich stuff. Yeah. And they talk about having like a motive, like an obsessional motive that you're going after. And that's kind of the first step, right? Whether that's the profit motive, which is probably true for a lot of people, obviously, because that's what we need to provide. There's a motive there. For some people, it might be the motive to create something or whatever. But it's been interesting in this latest project that I've been involved with. Obviously, the numbers have to make sense. And so there is a profit motive. But as we got that product to the stage where we were able to start marketing it, and had a really good response, like people really excited about that product, really excited about kind of the vision that we had around it. That was kind of the first, maybe not the first, but the most, maybe the biggest project that I've had like that, to be able to take a product through and kind of have a finished vision for it. And I found that was more fulfilling than the profit motive or whatever, more fulfilling. Like, I created that.
That is really cool.
And back to that value conversation, the value, like you're saying, like, that's cool. I created value to that. And then it kind of makes you want to go create more value, and so it really, you can see how people become serial entrepreneurs because, and on the outside, it probably looks like money, money motivation. But I really don't think so. When people get into it and become successful, I think that creating things for others really probably becomes the main focus of it. And it's really like Elon Musk. Like,
that's so funny you said that. He was in my mind as you said it.
Like, he doesn't need any more money, and he knows he doesn't need any more money. Yeah. He jabs back and forth with all the other rich people, like making fun of him or whatever. But he genuinely is creating amazing things. And I think that that's probably the most profoundly his drive behind it. I don't know.
Well, and he's said his main motivator is getting to Mars. that's why he's created a lot of the other companies that he has, is to fund getting to Mars. And in the beginning, I'm the exact same as you. Like, maybe not the exact same as what you said, but kind of what I got out of it. In the beginning, I wanted to do business for money. Mm-hmm. And then I started finding out that people are genuinely changing their lives because they come and start rock climbing. Maybe they were scared of heights, and now they're moving. They're just, everything changes. They find a group of people, then they have a group of success, and they move on further and further. And same in CrossFit, and same in, even like having apartments. It's just, people didn't have a place to live. Well, now they do. And we try to add a little more value than maybe, let's say, the competitor down the street. Mm-hmm. And it just changes people's lives. And you're like, hey, we were able to facilitate that. At least be the medium for that exchange. And there's just something really fulfilling about it. And I would say that it all comes down to happiness and fulfillment. And that's why people are wanting to leave their jobs. They're not happy. They're not fulfilled. Well, what do? Well, crap. I go back to school and then get another job that I don't like? No. You can go create whatever life you want. There are people that make a really good living talking to people. Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. Oprah Winfrey. Ellen. They just love talking to people. So what do? They talk to people and make a great living. There's people that are guides. They enjoy traveling the world. So then they charge people and they bring them out to the world. We have a friend who's talking about clearing snow off of roofs. Well, he really enjoys the outdoors and he loves that area. So he's talking, and it's a great idea. And that's value creation, and that creates a living. And then you're fulfilled. And there's no point. I've said it for years. I've had to up the number because of inflation, but I used to say I'd rather make $40,000 a year doing what I love than making $100,000 a year doing what I hate.
Sure.
Well, now you can't live on $40,000 a year, so you up it. I'd rather make $60,000 a year doing something that I love than $200,000 a year doing something I hate. I have no desire to go out and do something that I hate every day. Why? Mm-hmm. So we can drive a nicer car?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Drive a 1985 vehicle for a year, and then when you move up to a 1995 vehicle, you feel really good.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Live in a 1970s house, which is what I do right now, and then later on, you can live in something nicer, and it doesn't have to be brand new and huge, because my life is good. Mm-hmm. It's fulfilled, and we don't. I don't worry about, man, I don't want to go to work. I don't feel that anymore. Well, I don't make as much money as if I were to go out and be an attorney or a doctor, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think too, one thing in the jobs that I've had, any job, and it depends on the people too, right? I mean, there's different people that have different attitudes.
For sure.
But overwhelmingly in any of those jobs, the attitude's like, I can't wait until I'm done and can retire from this job. That is the end goal. And even as society, that's kind of, we focus on retirement so much in our society, like it's somehow like, I don't know what, like the holy grail of the life is getting to retirement. And I've thought okay, I'm going to retire. I'm going to have a job that I don't like. Then I'm going to retire from that. And then what am I going to do? Why not build something that you love to do? You can structure it in a way that maybe you phase out so you're not working a ton, when you're to retirement age. But I don't ever want to retire. I want to be involved in things that I'm passionate about until I die.
Yeah.
And so we think of that as like, oh, well, a business is strictly for money, and it's not. I think most of the people I know that are in business, they're 80 years old and they're still going to work because they're fulfilled. It's something to do. They're set. They have plenty of money.
Yeah.
They could quit and go do whatever they want, but they don't. They want to create value. They want to have something that keeps them going, something to get up for in the morning. You know, and that's what I want. I want to have things that I'm excited about. If I get to where I'm not excited about one, well, I'm going to start another one.
Exactly.
Or if I'm excited about this one and I have more time and energy and something else seems exciting, well, I can start something else, you know, and kind of structure them so that I can be as involved or as little involved as I want to be.
Yeah.
To me, that seems like a fulfilling life instead of, well, I'm going to work at this. I hate it. I don't like the people I come to work with. The policies are stupid.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it until I retire, and then after that, life will be good. You know, like that's rough for me to think. Okay, so that's like 20, 30 years of doing that. Like that's hard.
Well, and who knows? We could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that retirement's really gonna suck.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of like to do some things that I enjoy right now, because who knows? Or, you know, something happens to a kid or happens to a spouse, or, man, no, you got to make the memories now. You got to do what's fulfilling now. And I think something that maybe it's an excuse, but I think it does hold people back is this belief that if everybody is doing well, it's impossible for everyone to do well. Mm-hmm. That if I do well, I'm somehow taking from somebody else. And I think it's a completely false narrative. We live in the most prosperous time that has ever been on the entire earth. Obviously, there's poverty and there's bad things that I think we can get in and fix more so with entrepreneurialism than let's say larger government. We're more prosperous than ever, but there's more people on the earth than ever. There's plenty of prosperity to go around. But instead of the idea of taking from someone that has a lot to give to someone who doesn't, I think the idea is we need to raise everyone up who doesn't to know that they can go out and value create. I don't know how many mega geniuses there are that have just never had the opportunity to get out and make it happen, whether they were born in, you know, maybe a country that had very suppressive laws, or maybe a family that just taught them from a very young age that they're never worth anything, or whatever that is. But man, there's so much prosperity to go around.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, back to the entrepreneur revolution thing, I think of, because that creates value. You know, jobs create value too. Some jobs don't. Yeah. You know, some jobs don't create value, I guess, but I was going to say like exponentiate. Is that a word? I don't know.
Exponentiate.
But I think that's what's exciting to me is, say there is a percentage of these people that aren't working or leaving their jobs or whatever, that are getting ready to go out and or are in the process of starting businesses and stuff right now. You know how much more prosperous we will be in the future. I mean, hopefully our government's growing at this, you know, exponentially too, which kind of they, in my mind, compete. You know, they're kind of competing heads in that. But I think it's exciting, because if we can get back to people becoming entrepreneurial, self-reliant, creating value for others, that's the American dream, really. That's what's made our country so great anyway. And so we really could have, even though there's lots of problems, you know, we've got debt, and I mean, it's just, there is lots of problems. But if there's any hope of us coming out of this, I think that's what could do it, is a huge boom of entrepreneurs and people that are thinking for themselves and saying, I'm done with that system. I'm going to move into this other one where I'm creating stuff for others, creating my own lifestyle. I think it's really optimistic for the future.
I think it's optimistic in multiple ways. So let's say 10% of the workforce goes out and starts their own thing. Well, now there's 10% of the workforce that is not filling those jobs. Well, what that does is then it makes the owners of those businesses or corporations have to innovate the job space. So I don't hire anyone who's not passionate about coaching, fitness, or rock climbing. Well, why? Because I want them to be happy. I don't want an unhappy employee. We have no problem getting employees, even in an industry that doesn't typically pay a ton to their people. Like I said earlier, like we pay as much as we can, and we're continually giving merit raises and different things as they grow and they learn. But
There's already that passion there.
The passion's there. Mm-hmm. Well, if I work as a telephone operator, me personally, I couldn't do it. I'd go crazy. Well, if I'm going to leave and start my own work, something that I'm passionate about, it's going to force that owner to innovate that position so that they can find people that are passionate about talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's good for the entire space. And I'd rather have more competition than less, because we don't think of competition as competition. We think of it as collaboration. How do we work with each other and grow this whole thing? Maybe I have a cartel mentality. Just work together and grow it all. Uh-huh. There's no point in, if someone's developing this property and someone's developing this one, they're not fighting against each other. The whole area is growing.
Yeah.
If there's a gym here and a gym there and they're not fighting against each other, you're helping the entire community to get fit.
Well, and you're kind of, even though maybe there's a gym here and a gym there or development here, you're still unique. Like there's still people that would buy this property that wouldn't buy this property. So it's not, you know what I mean? It's not direct competition necessarily. Sure. It's creating more value, like it's creating value for a person that might not go to XYZ business or whatever, Yeah. So there's so much. I think people look at that and they're like, oh, well, there's already this many business of that kind of businesses in this area. Like that would never work. Well, maybe, there's definitely gets to be a point, but nobody can bring the new uniqueness that you as an individual can bring to that business. Nobody can put your spin on it.
Yep.
And so I just feel like there is room. And plus with the technology expanding that we have, like this metaverse, cryptocurrency, like I don't even understand most of it, but there is some major opportunities in that too for things that we don't even know exist yet.
Yeah. That our kids understand way more than we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think that it's an incredible time. It really is. And for everything that there is that's wrong in the world, there's a lot to be excited about. Yeah. Because I think anybody can, if you're unhappy where you're at, whatever it is you like to do, you can make a business. If you like to, and this might have been a Gary V thing or something, but if you like to like knit sweaters for cats,
yeah,
you can probably make a living doing that.
There's probably multimillionaires that knit sweaters for cats.
For cats.
Yeah.
Like they have a YouTube channel or whatever
Yep.
cat sweater knitters do. I don't know. But like, so if that is an idea that is feasible, which it totally is, I'm not, like.
Oh, yeah. There's probably someone
anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Let's do it.
It's cool. So.
It is cool. And value, I think, can also be exponential. So you hear of a lot of YouTube stars. They're like, I did this for 5 years before I ever pulled a profit. Now they're making $50,000 a month. And they're like, I did it for 4 years. Well, they were adding free value for 4 years until they were able to grow that following, and then it goes big. So people do need to know and understand that just because you get into a business doesn't mean you're automatically going to start making money. And you don't have to jump in both feet first to make it happen. I've read and gone to a lot of seminars that are like, burn your ships and make it happen. And I'm more like, well, actually, start really small and make sure it's what you want to do. So it's okay to start a very small side business and grow that first, and then go, yeah, I am liking this. Let's hire someone. Mm-hmm. Hey, they're doing a really good job. I'm actually going to step away from my job now, and I'm going to work more into this. There's so many different ways. The sky's the limit. Like if someone wants to go make it happen, they can, and they can do it in almost any way that they can, in almost any fashion that they want. But it does need to happen. I think it is happening. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be this entrepreneurial revolution, and it's going to change everything. But people need to know that they can go out and make the change. Sometimes I'm like, well, why do I vote? It's not going to matter. Well, it does matter. It matters greatly. We might be told that it doesn't matter for other reasons. Mm-hmm. So, You want to add value to the world? Get out and add value to the world. It might be a little bit of value. It might be a lot of value. We all have different places, but it needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. That's a good stopping point, you think?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
That's cool. So, I mean, we kind of went over the why to do it, right? I feel like that was a pretty good review of why. Maybe as we move forward, kind of, we implement some like how-to, like some tools we've used, or some, talk about some of those steps and some of those things along the way, so that if people are,
you went to college?
If people is, well, I'm from, we're in Idaho here too, so true. But then, so if people are to that point where they're like, yep, I'm ready to go, like, maybe there's some steps and some resources that they can jump in and make it happen.
Totally agree.
So
that'll be the next one.
Sounds
Make it
good.
happen. Thanks, Matt.
See you.